Hello, everybody, and welcome back to your favorite podcast, Swift Start Go. Today, we have a very special guest, a dear friend of mine from college, actually, who kind of demanded to be on the show. And I said, okay, fine, but it better be funny. So, Catherine, can you introduce yourself and explain why you wanted to come on our show today and also why you love Swift Start Go? The best podcast in the world, obviously.
Obviously, yeah. Well, thank you for having me on. Thank you for taking my demand. I very much appreciate it. As you know, I went to college with Caroline and we had a great time. And so I knew it was going to be a great conversation anyways, which is why I do enjoy listening to her podcast because you find things out that you wouldn't randomly search for, right? You don't know what you're searching for until you know what question you're asking for. But me, myself, and I am in marketing, but I'm currently in sales. My heart lives in marketing. So there's that. And then I also am neurodivergent, neurospicy, not neurotypical. So I have a big, mucho grande passion for all things that help with people who have neurodiversity.
Yeah,
Especially when you're out of the college scene.
yeah, honestly, yeah, the way schools treat neurodiversity and then how the real world, quote unquote, real world, whatever that is, treats neurodiversity can definitely be different and certainly interesting. And as someone who is also perhaps a little neurospicy herself, heavy relate and was really excited to have this conversation. So everybody, Mary reached out to me the other day. I think it was, you saw one of my posts where I didn't outright say that AI was taking jobs,
No. Yeah.
but I also did not say that.
Yeah.
And basically my point that I was saying was, I don't necessarily think that AI is going to be taking all of our jobs, but I do think a lot of corporate executive leadership is maybe hoping that will happen,
Mm-hmm.
or hoping, or like, and I'm less concerned about AI taking jobs as I am about senior executives taking advantage of the fact of AI taking jobs. And you reached out with a fantastic voice note, basically saying, "Hey, like, I don't know if you're right about this. Can you explain more about what you were thinking and like how you're using AI on a regular basis these days?"
Yeah. So a little bit about me. I have been in a couple of different types of companies I've worked for. So I've worked for those entrepreneurs who are solo, they're like doing their own thing and living their best life for trying to with all the hats. And then I've worked for like a 2-team marketing department where it's just the two of us, with a lot of responsibilities that we have to do and a lot to do. And then I work for corporate America, and they all have different nuances to them, right?
Yeah.
And so when we're really looking and talking about AI, the first thing we heard when it came onto the market was it's going to take over jobs, we're going to lose people, right? And it's all this chatter and kind of, I'm not going to say it's fear mongering, but like rightfully so, like people are concerned.
Yeah.
And I very much agree with the concern. Like there are things that I'm like, oh, I don't know about this. This makes me nervous.
Yeah.
Also, just like the environmental implications too. I'm not
Yes.
going to go down that road, but like that I think is something that we don't ever really talk about either. It's just like this bot that gives us this information and like we're okay with it, but there's like a bunch of other environmental stuff that goes with it. But for me, what I figured out really quickly was it was a beautiful tool that I had sort of been searching the world for. So when I was in college and high school, I had tutors. I had people to check my papers, right? We have a support system. There's a network. There are people that can help us. And that was great. And then you get out of college and you graduate and they give you this beautiful shiny diploma and you're like, "Oh, great. I'm set for life." Like,
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Saint Olaf.
yeah,
We
yeah, thank
appreciate
you.
you.
Yeah. And you just kind of hope that your neurodiversity kind of goes away, right? Because the world is created for people who all think the same. And when you do not think the same and you don't have the same skill sets, that I don't want to say
Neurotypical.
that a neurotypical person would have in the same job that you have, it can be really challenging.
Yeah.
A lot of companies do not know how to handle someone who is neurodiverse. They might say like, "Oh, we're all for equity, like, and we're all for this," and then they'll come to you and say, "Well, what do you need for accommodations?" And you go, checks and balances. Like if I'm going to send something out, maybe like have someone do a once over on it if it's really, really, really important. But like,
Yeah.
otherwise, like, I don't know, you just gotta let me go, like, and see what happens.
Yeah.
And for the most part, it's not usually a problem. But what I started to notice was, especially for corporate America and even certain other, like in my sales job currently too, there are times where I just feel like I need to be a little bit more polished. And I would hear like, we just need you to be more polished. And I'd be like, cool, that's not really helpful though. Like in a, like, it's not showing me what you mean by polished, right?
I think a lot of professionals forget that when you jump from college writing or high school writing into professional writing, that it's a very, very different style. I know so much of what we were taught in high school, college, back when we went to school, we graduated around 2014, was extremely academic, and you had to phrase everything in a very specific way. And in some ways, it was really good at flexing your brain into learning how to communicate in different ways, and how to make sure, like, how many SAT words can you throw in there, right? How can you create phrases that are incredibly detailed but also very succinct by using as much jargon as you can. But then you get out into the professional world, and some environments really appreciate that kind of jargon or that kind of like very, very nuanced, specific word choice. But for the majority of the business world, you're supposed to talk much more, right? Much more like you speak as a human.
Mm-hmm.
But then also there's some more different, completely different types of jargon that you're also expected to know. And also, like, if you want to say something curtly but politely, but you end up in like this goofy situation where you're sitting there being like, how on earth do I write, hey, can we make this go faster, please?
Yeah.
Right. And I know I had a lot of anxiety going into my first job of how do I write an email to a superior?
Hmm.
And I'm pretty sure my emails usually consisted of something like, "Dear sir or madam." And really I had to say, "Hey Jory, can you help me with this one project?" Right? Like
Yeah. No, it's very true. When so I don't know when Grammarly came out, but whenever Grammarly came out kind of onto the scene, that was the first like stepping stool tool that so I have dyslexia. Like I'll call out
Yeah.
what my neurodiversity is. I have dyslexia and I have a little bit of ADHD going on around there. But that was great. Grammarly was fantastic. And when I had things that had to go out that were big bulletin type things, I would put it into Grammarly. I'd ask it a couple things. I'd even pay for it myself. Like that was how I wasn't asking the companies I was working for to pay for it. I was like, this is something that I know it's like not my cross to bear, but like this is my person. This is just part of me. This is who I am. So like I should just pay for it, sort of a thing. Um, but what I was noticing was the amount of output that I needed to do with the amount of input also that I needed to do. Sometimes Grammarly just wasn't fast enough, and it wasn't able to always tell me why a sentence wasn't working right or why something wasn't sounding confident enough. Well, then in comes Chat GPT onto the scene, and it's like it busts the door down. It just like it came in guns a blazing in the best way possible. And I was like, I'm always suspicious, to be
Yeah.
honest. To be completely honest, like everyone else, I am a skeptic. And I
Especially
don't.
in all of my content. Like, listen, you guys shouldn't trust me. It's really sketchy. But
Yeah, I mean,
0 out of 10, not recommend.
but I was skeptic, and I was like, I'm just gonna like once in a while, I'll just test something out, see if it works.
Mhm.
Well, and I knew like when something first starts, when in its infancy, it's never like as good as it can be. So I kind of waited, and I've just been like waiting on the sidelines, kind of watching people do it, and kind of, just doing one little dabble here, one little dabble there, until this year when I was like, no, we're embracing this. And so now the great thing about it is I can take an email that I'm about to send to a client or to someone who a cold email, cold call, cold email, and I can put it into GPT and I can say, does this make sense? And it will pop out something that's like, it does make sense, but if you did it this way, here's what it would sound like and why it would feel more polished, right? And I'll read it and I'll be like, okay, I understand the gist of it. And here's the difference, I think. And this is why I know that it'll make our jobs better and easier, but it won't take away our jobs fully. It's still there's like reasoning around it that it's like, ooh, I see what you're going for, ChatGPT, but you are way off base. They are not a client yet. They have not signed yet. Like, this has not happened yet. So like, slow your roll there, kid. And then I go back in and I edit out and make it look like and sound like it makes sense, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But again, it takes away it's as if I have a tutor next to me or like someone who's grammarly accessible and understands what I'm trying to say. Because not all the time do I make points that I'm like, does that make sense to you? And in verbally me communicating, it sounds great. But like when you're reading it, it's like, ooh, I don't really know if that sounds the most smoothest it can be. So
Yeah.
having someone kind of like regurgitate that back to me within 10 seconds is a game changer. Really, it takes less time for me to do that than it is to go into Grammarly.
Yeah. And one of the things that I was thinking about too was, it's not just for us fabulous neurospicy individuals.
Yeah.
I remember I was not sure how I was feeling about ChatGPT probably 2 years ago. Right when it really started popping, I was having difficulty getting it to write how I write. I still can't get it to write how I want it to in like my voice. I don't know that I want ChatGPT to learn my voice, but at the same time, it would make my life a lot easier if it could predict all of the jokes that I was going to tell that are really good.
Yeah,
Or
how could they not just predict what you're going to say?
I know, it's so rude.
Gosh darn it.
Or at bare minimum, ChatGPT has a habit of cutting all my jokes when I ask it to revise things. And I'm like, guys, no, you can't get rid of this joke. This is really well thought out. Okay, this is unacceptable. But the first thing that really got me to pivot on like not wanting to use or like I was still kind of on the fence about like, do I like ChatGPT, whatever. And the first thing that like completely changed my mind was talking to my buddy Moo, who is from Nigeria. And, he's an entrepreneur and phenomenal salesperson here in Minneapolis. And I remember chatting with him and him saying, oh, I love ChatGPT. ChatGPT always makes sure that my English is perfect. And he said, and my English is getting better because I basically have a coach who's helping me make sure that the words that I'm saying are always 100% clear. And I said, oh my God, this makes so much sense. Like, I can't tell you how many people from different, languages, international communities and whatnot, who have really struggled with feeling really like incredibly smart, but then feeling like they can't express that in English. Right.
Yes.
And so that was that was definitely my pivot point of maybe this tool isn't for me, but this is a phenomenal tool. And I think it could be used in a wide variety of ways when it comes to especially kids trying to learn English for the very first time and being able to like not be embarrassed to ask a friend, what does this word mean? And like get teased for it. Right. And to just get
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Put it in chat and see what pops out.
Yeah.
No, I think it's very interesting. You bring up school and I understand. I've been in an education background for a while and I understand the kids are using it and they're they're cutting corners and I
Yeah.
won't say cheating, but like, there are definitely teachers now that have to figure out a way to get around ChatGPT. But it's one of those tools where you can use it as for good or you can use it for being sneaky. And I know so my cousin, she was actually the reason I decided to go all in with chat. And
Mm.
she's in graduate school. She's becoming a lawyer. Very proud of her.
Mm. Yeah.
Yes, she's becoming a lawyer. But we were talking about, she also has neurospicy tendencies as well, and so she was telling me how she uses it and how she's like, yeah, I'm writing a paper, if there's a paragraph I'm not quite sure if it makes sense, I'll put it in and ask ChatGPT if it makes sense, and it usually spits out something that sounds a little bit more polished and makes a little bit more sense from the way I'm going. And I heard that and I was like, do you know how much shame, blame, and guilt would have been taken off of me had I had that tool in college or even in high school?
Yeah. I remember, so I don't know how much you remember this, but at St. Olaf we had something called the Great Conversation Program.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which was essentially read all the old great classic books of philosophy and religion and uh, Mesopotamia and the Greeks and whatever. And I specifically signed up for Great Con, as we called it,
Yeah.
because I had neglected my basically my English and history education in high school. I went to a
Okay.
very competitive high school and I was doing very, very poorly in math, science, and languages. And so I put all of my focus on those subjects and kind of just, glided through English, even though it was my absolute favorite topic. And by the time I graduated, I realized that my reading and writing skills, while still, better than the average high schooler, was not at the point that I wanted it to be. So I
Mm.
decided to get into Great Con to force myself to get dramatically better at writing.
Yeah.
And it was, I had severe difficulty with academic writing. And it got me to where I wanted to be, which was a much more confident writer. So I was really, really glad for that. But I remember just slogging through these essays that I
Mm.
so desperately wanted to be fantastic. Like I wasn't trying to just, get a B minus. I was trying to like get an A, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then just consistently getting a C plus. And
Well, they do say Great Con humbles you. I have heard Great Con humbles you.
and the good news was I went in there with the expectation of, oh, I'm not going to be the best in class. I might
Mm.
be the worst in class. So that like wasn't so much of an issue. But it was the type of thing where had I had chat GPT,
Mm.
an aggressively ethical human being as I am, I get really like laser focused on doing the right thing. I'm pretty sure that college Carolyn would have said, okay, I'm going to use this to help me rewrite my essay or ask it to give me feedback or ask it to tell me how do I improve this or how do I make this better or how do I turn this from just another C plus paper into an A paper
Yeah.
rather than just getting it to write it for me. I think that's probably the approach that I would have done. And I think it would have made me a better writer faster.
Yeah, I mean, and it kind of goes back to what Mo was saying about how it was like having an English coach right there with you.
Yeah.
And I feel the same way. I mean, I think really, in all honesty, it can in many ways help level the playing field. And when you think about it from an academic standpoint, yes, it can help level the playing field there, but it also in corporate America can actually help level the playing field and make it so that a person who may have been considered for a promotion, but was passed up because their skills weren't as polished or up to par as the person next to them. I'm not going to say genders because like we're not going to get into that. That's not for today. But I think that it would level up a lot of people who are, they're performing, they're trying to their best to meet all the standards and the quotas and all this, all the things that are asked of them, plus a little bit more, because everyone in corporate America wants a little bit more, allow them to really shine without having this like cloak of like, oh, well, she's great, but don't ask her to do this, this, and this, because you won't ever get it up to par. Like it won't ever be good enough.
Or so much of it is just a confidence thing. Like,
yes, that too.
Making sure, like, I think my biggest fear factor, honestly, even still today, when it comes to being in corporate America, has been like asking for a promotion, negotiating for a raise,
Yeah.
and being able to say, hey, ChatGPT, what's like the normal thing to do? What's like the thing to do? Hey, how do I like, and being able to get a response right away instead of
Yeah.
asking my friend via text, who may or may not get back to me in time, right? That can make or break it. I think it's the type of thing where if you're using these tools right, it can be really, really game changing and make it so that you can be just that much more successful. And even if you are uncomfy with the idea of not writing your own work, these tools can be used in so many more ways to improve your writing or just get feedback without having to, call your friend every day.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing about being neurodiverse is that have you heard of the spoons theory?
Oh, yes, but explain it for our audience.
Okay,
Here.
so for the audience, this is for people who are sick, have autoimmune disorders, who have chronic illness, and then people who are in the neurodiversity community. There's this theory that you only have so many spoons a day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And depending on your level of, I don't want to say functionality, but your level of how much tasks slow you down and like mentally how much you have to work through it. Like a mom always talks about, you'll see women talk about who are moms, like, I've got to do the dishes and the laundry, and then I have to make sure my husband knows where his keys are, and like then he comes and says, well, like, did you feed the kids lunch? But I wasn't watching them, but it was your turn, so like why did I have to make lunches for you to then give to the kids, sort of a thing.
Yeah.
So for us, it's like we only have so many spoons to give during the day, like especially during the work day, right? I can give you a spoon when I'm trying to finish up a project. I can give you a spoon when I'm writing like a big email out to the company. I can give away a spoon. But as soon as I start to give those spoons away, like I'm going to get to the point where I have no more spoons to give. And it's maybe 1 p.m. in the afternoon, and work still goes until what, 5 for most people, 4:35. And then you're kind of like, well, what do I do? How do I continue going through my life without giving away all these spoons? And so something that's really cool about ChatGPT is you can put in things to break projects down, right? So a lot of people who are in business, whether it's entrepreneurial or just, part of a team, they might be given a project and then they say like, okay, go, like figure it out. And you have to break down the steps. Now for me, I've never really had a problem of breaking down projects or having that as a thing. But I do know a lot of people who are like, oh, you can break that down on ChatGPT. And so you can give them all of that they need to know, ChatGPT, and then ask them to break it down into easy steps. And then if it's not enough, I love that you can go back and say, okay, but break it down even more. Yeah. And it'll then pop up like kind of an itinerary of what you have to do for said project in order to accomplish it.
Yeah.
Which in a lot of times that's enough of a little bit of a little gift that it takes some of that and it gives us a spoon back. And I think that's really exciting to know that there are ways for us to keep our spoons without having to just give them all away to what might seem pointless and mindless things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh, I love this so much. So I'm going to ask a few questions.
Yeah.
I think my first one is, what are you using AI tools most for? And like, what have been the most promising use cases for you just in your day-to-day life?
Yeah. I use ChatGPT specifically to send out emails. And I like it because we'll be given a templated email, right? And I'll read it, and I'm a marketing person, but I'm in sales.
Yeah.
And I'll read it and I'll be like, Number one, too many words. It's always too many words.
Always.
And we always joke about how people don't read. Well,
Mhm.
people don't read. Yes, they don't read, but you also don't structure it properly. The one thing I do think is really interesting about ChatGPT is how it structures its sentences. And you'll see it gives you a lot of bullet points if you ask it to break something down, or if you ask it to like give me the top 5
Really?
reasons of why someone should do something, right? And yes, it can be like if I see an email sometimes that comes into my inbox that's like a cold call sales email, I'll be like, you got that off of ChatGPT just based off of the bullet points and how it's structured. But I think that there's something that we can take from that, and it's just readability. ChatGPT is like giving you a way to read it so that you can easily skim through it. And if I can't easily skim through an email, chances are like it's like any of us, like we're probably gonna like mark it as unread, or like send it into the trash, or be like, I don't have time for you, and just immediately write it off, right, and keep going with ourselves. So that's one way I really like to use it, is I'll take things and I'll make it shorter, right?
Mhm.
Take this but make it shorter. Take this but make it more clear and concise. Take
Yeah.
this and do X, Y, and Z. And it usually does provide me with a good enough structure that then I can take it and like tweak it a little bit more and then send it on its way. The other way that I really love to use it, and I think all entrepreneurs or any business person should do this, is give ChatGPT your website and
Mhm.
start asking it to find things on your website.
Yeah.
And if it can't easily find or describe to you, like there was, and I don't remember the Bobble's name, but there was like a widget that you could use, and it would go and it would tell you, and you could be like, here's this website. Tell me what their mission statement is. Tell me what their values are.
Yeah.
Can you tell me like how much it costs to have like a introductory skin call? Like, let's just say it's that. But
Mhm.
and it'll pop out all the information that it can find on that website. And if you're doing that and you're not finding the information that you thought was on there, right? Because we're so in our own world, right? This is our business. We're in it all the time. Of course, you should know that when you come to me for a 15-minute free call, that you'll obviously get this free thing. Like sometimes we think we say it so much, but it's because we're thinking it so much, we don't actually say it, and we don't say it clear and concise. So I really love it because it allows me to go on some people's websites, see what they're up to, grab some information, and then maybe like, oh, I think this is a really good prospect. I think this could be like a really good fit. Or it could be like, ooh, I really need to talk to them about how we can update their SEO and how we can make things a little bit more easy to read, right? And follow. So those are some of the ways that I like to use ChatGPT.
Very cool. Have you been playing at all with, I guess you're in sales right now more than marketing, even though you are a marketer who is in sales.
That's very true.
Um,
Yes.
yeah. But have you been trying to play at all with how do you get your brand to pop up on ChatGPT at all? Has that?
I haven't dabbled in that enough yet. I have slowly, there have been slowly some things that I've been doing, but nothing to that full extent. No.
Yeah. That's something that I'm working on right now. I should probably make a whole video on it. That
Yeah,
probably.
you should.
Yeah, okay. Well, you heard it here
You
first.
heard it here. It's coming.
There's a new field. There's a few different names for it, but the name that I've been hearing is GEO. So
Okay.
narrative engine, whatever the SEO is.
Yep.
But but the idea is how do you make sure that what you're publishing on your website or just on the internet in general is getting onto ChatGPT, with the goal being how do you get ChatGPT to always refer your business people who are searching for something like you guys.
Yeah.
So I've heard a few different things. It sounds like the basics are have good SEO. Like
Yeah.
that would
Like
be,
all things.
but I think there are people who are trying to do hacks of like,
Mm.
oh, I'm going to write like bonus blog posts that maybe it would be unnecessary for people or that people might not read, but that ChatGPT will read and like go and explore there. So that's something that I'm interested in learning more about.
That's really smart. I think just from a marketing standpoint, and especially like a solo business entrepreneur standpoint as well, there are so many ways you can use ChatGPT by putting in like, here's my website. here's my Instagram place, like
Yeah.
give me some ideas on content, and it'll start generating ideas on what you can do to create content for yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's a brilliant tool for people to use. I saw on LinkedIn there was a post, and it said like, here are 6 different things that you should be trying on social media that we found to work for this month, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And so I saved it, and I have an online bookstore that I just dabble with on the side. And I was like, you know what? This is the perfect time to be seeing what people are saying you should do, and then just trying it out and see what works. Because really, when it comes down to it, is, you're playing against an algorithm, but you're also playing with ChatGPT, which is basically an algorithm.
It is. Yeah.
So I think it's very interesting to see if you can fight an algorithm with another algorithm.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. Yeah. We'll have to circle back, have another podcast episode where we reveal to people whether or not our
hypotheses are true. Let's do that. Let's we'll figure this out. We'll set up some things that we can try, and then we'll test it out, and we'll come back and
That'd be so fun.
we'll give the results.
Well, I want to end this on the same topic that we kind of started with this, which was talking about whether or not we think that AI is going to steal all of our jobs.
Steal them all.
They're going to steal them all.
They're coming for us.
They're coming for us. So I'll go first because I think about this all day long, every day, because this is currently my job to just post things on the internet about AI.
Yeah, love it.
What I've been thinking lately is I think there will be a certain amount of disruption of AI taking our jobs, but I think it has less to do with AI and more to do with people becoming more efficient when it comes to doing their work, and executives more specifically continuing this trend of cutting individuals in order to gain more profits to spike their stock market prices. In addition, the things I'm concerned about with this are, I'm not sure whether we're going to be seeing mega hiring booms again, these of the largest companies, since there's been so much pullback, and since the Fed, which we don't have to get into the politics of it all, but since the Fed objectively has cut over 100,000 jobs in the last 2 weeks, we are seeing a lot of pullback from opportunities that are there that have more to do with the macroeconomy than AI in itself. So do I think AI is going to take jobs? I think in some very specific use cases it has. Recently, the Mill, which is, I don't know if you're familiar with the Mill, but they're a visual effects studio that I've actually I've worked on at least one project with them when I worked in advertising in New York and LA, wherever their headquarters was. Ended up shutting down simply because their overhead, so the amount that they were paying to do the same work that now AI tools are able to do, was so dramatically more expensive that big mega advertisers decided to no longer work with them, and they couldn't financially keep themselves afloat. I think where the opportunity is, and I think it is a major opportunity, is that it's going to be dramatically easier for people to start businesses, and that we're going to have a much larger amount of smaller companies that are able to have much bigger output than there have been in the past. And so just from my vantage point of somebody who's job hunting and looking around at the market and seeing what's going on, it really does seem like small companies are where it's at the moment. And that's kind of what I've been thinking about.
Yeah.
I'm just injecting all of that in here, but I'm curious what you're thinking, especially because you said, girl, AI's not taking these jobs. You're just like, Carolyn, you are wrong. And I'm like, listen, tell me everything. Why am I wrong?
Here's the thing. Okay, so I listened to a podcast called Sounds Like a Cult.
Yeah.
And at the end, the whole podcast is basically they take something like Harry Potter and then they discuss it and how they think it could be a cult, be considered a cult, and like why. And it's like funny, and you kind of poke fun at things. And at the end, they give you a rating of like, what do you think it is? Is it like a live your life, watch your back, or like GTFO? Like get out now.
Yeah.
And I think this falls under the like watch your back situation,
Yeah.
right? I don't think I can definitely understand where you're coming from, and I
Mhm.
understand and know that there will be companies that will definitely, probably, most likely eliminate people's jobs.
Yeah.
But and they will say it's because of AI. Oh, we've got efficiencies, like it's blah blah
Mhm.
blah blah blah. But really, it's just because they just want to cut costs and be greedy, right? We know that's going to happen, but that always happens. But like, for example, I'm in print right now. So I am in magazines and print. And what we're seeing is that because everything is so saturated on email and on Instagram and Facebook and social media and all those things, that people are coming back to hard-covered books. They're coming back to magazines. They're looking and they're wanting content, right? That they're wanting something that reminds them of the old ways, the nostalgia.
Yeah.
And I think we haven't hit the crescendo yet of AI and job loss and all that, but I do believe that there are people who will still keep their jobs.
Mhm.
They'll just be more efficient at them. But I also think there'll be many people who will lose them.
Mhm.
Not to say that they wouldn't have lost them had ChatGPT not been around,
Yeah.
right? I think that it's just about evolution. Of the job market and the way that companies work. But then I do think that there'll be a turn. And at some point, people are going to be like, hey, we miss the human to human contact interaction. Because there are nuances that you just can't get. Like you said, when you were talking about how ChatGPT takes out your jokes,
They just all
right?
my jokes. It's so
All
rude.
your jokes
All my
gone. Right, but like we need, like, as a society, as a human, as a community, like we need that human spark, that little soul part of ourselves. We need that connection. And again, you aren't going to necessarily get that from someone. Like how annoying do we get when we go call our bank and it's like, hi, to reach this person plus one, and it's like, just the first thing you think, well, my first reaction is human operator, give me a human, right? Like I'm just yelling into the phone, human, like operator, give me someone, a live being. I don't care where they live, like just give me a live being.
I'm literally I've been going back and forth with a State Farm agent for a while,
Oh yeah.
and I might train an AI bot to email them over and over again until they get back to me.
Hey, you gotta do what you gotta do.
I know.
At some point, the amount of emails that we have to send out now is staggering to when people will actually get back to you. So if you can make a chat bot do what you need it to do your dirty work, then like I
If
say,
I could get a chatbot to call them, I would, but I don't have this individual's phone number.
oh,
The person who I've been negotiating with for 6 months only expects updates via email, but only responds via phone.
oh,
And then it's like, why didn't you answer your phone? And I'm like,
why didn't you answer my email?
why didn't you answer my email? And so I think, but if I will do the agent thing, like getting AI agents to write her a lot of emails, I will make sure that they're only funny.
Good.
Yeah,
You can add some memes.
yeah, just add some memes. I
Add some memes.
thought maybe I could ask the AI agent to write her some sonnets
Yeah.
and just like
Haikus. Do a
haiku,
little haiku in there.
like please get back to care. Oh, okay, wait. Haikus 5-3.
Five,
No, 5-7.
575,
5-7-5. So it's
I
like,
think.
please get back to
Me.
me. My name is Carolyn. No. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Carolyn, yes.
Carolyn. Yeah.
Yes, please. Thank you. Bye.
That's awesome.
So yeah, we'll see if I can pull that off. But yeah, like it is for somebody like that who's in a customer service type of a role where they get hundreds of thousands of tickets,
Oh,
like I don't know how many tickets, but so many
yeah.
tickets
So many tickets.
that they can't address all of them, and that their inbox is not inbox zero because it's impossible to be inbox zero. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
how do you get their attention, especially when they're incentivized do not give you more money. And so, so yeah, should everybody pivot to using AI agents to harass these individuals? I probably not. I don't think I would recommend.
Yeah, I don't really recommend it,
But
but
in
I
this specific
mean,
case, I will do so in a very nice and funny way.
well, but here's the other thing though too, is like you got to really think about it. Like I'm not saying that you're neurospicy, but if you were a neurospicy individual, this would be a great way to utilize the spoon situation and realize that like you only have so many spoons, and if this robot can do this and get you the money that you deserve
Mhm.
and need, then that is like, you know what? Shame on them for not have already just like followed through. So like use what you got, and that's this bot. So
Literally, this gal, all she has to do is look at a PDF, and then we're done. And she has not looked at the PDF, and so State Farm, I'm coming for you and your khakis. Look out!
ooh, ooh. Are they the red shirt too? Like, ooh, look out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They're like a good neighbor, but they're not always.
Oh yeah, no. Don't start singing it.
Don't do it. They
Jake
might
might
blow
show
up.
up.
Oh my gosh. Well, Mary, do you have any final thoughts to share with our audience before heading out? Or maybe would you like to plug your book company really quick?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you like books, if you love books, if you like the environment, if you like adventure, come to my bookshop online. It's called With Love Bookshop. What I do specifically is I take pre-loved, which means they've been used before, and I wrap them up in beautiful paper, and then I decorate them and make them look like something out of a fun picture. And then you read the back and you tell me if you would like to go on that adventure or not by purchasing it into your, putting it in your cart and purchasing it. But basically, I don't tell you what the book is. So you need to figure that out. If you are, though, an avid reader and you do love blind book dates, because that's what this is, you can always share your Goodreads or whatever other way that you like to keep track of your books, because then I will go through and I will make sure that you're not buying a book that you already have read.
Ooh, that is a good sell there, actually, because that would be a concern of mine is what if I already read the book? Right.
Right. And that's, yeah, I mean, I'm not unaware of that. So, and I give a lot more description than your average blind book date.
Yeah.
A lot of blind book dates just give you like 4 or 5 words in a genre, but I do say like New York Times bestseller, and I might give you a quick snippet of a sentence or two to just, help sweeten the deal.
Yeah. And what's the company name again? And what's
With
the website?
Love Bookshop.
With lovebookshop.com.
Yes. .com. Yes.
Oh my gosh, you secured it. That's amazing.
I know. I know.
Being able to pull off a .com these days, man, that's like a rare right there.
It was. And then I built the site and I was like, hey, now I just got to make the SEO better.
Okay. So both of us were in college. We were both art or art adjacent majors.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what do you have to say for artists right now when it comes to, for any artists who are maybe hesitant about using AI? And or what message do you have for techies who maybe aren't quite seeing eye to eye to the concerns that artists are bringing up?
Oh, wow. That is such a good question. Okay. Number one, there are some things that artists need to do, right, to get into galleries, to get their everything seen. Don't be afraid to utilize it, especially because we can't be good at everything, right? Like, I can't be amazing at oil painting and throwing clay on a wheel. And, like, there's just so many things and you pick your niche. And then have ChatGPT help you with the rest, right? All of the other sides of it. I think, I'll be interested to see how things evolve with copyright infringements and with creative ideas, just to see how that really spirals. From that perspective, that's what I would say. The other part of it too. What was the other part of the question?
The second part of the question was, the first one was artists talking about AI, like
Yep.
why to maybe give it a chance.
Yep.
And the other side of it was, hey, techies, what are you missing when it comes to this dialogue? Because what I've been finding is I had a friend who told me, I don't understand why artists are being such Luddites about AI. And we're like genuinely baffled. And I ended up having like a 30-minute conversation being like, hey, there's actually like a lot of really valid concerns that these communities are bringing up that we shouldn't ignore. So I'm curious if you have any thoughts for techie, because this is a majority techie audience.
Yeah.
And they don't get to hear a lot from artists who have these types of concerns. And I feel like you, like me, are kind of in the middle of all of this, right?
We're in the middle. Like we
Yeah.
have art degrees, right? But we're using them in like the not be homeless and like eat out of a paper bag situation, right?
Amazing.
Yeah, I mean it's wonderful. Graphic design has been a great thing for me. I will say to techies out there in the world that you are doing the work. But sometimes you have to realize that you got to get out of the like, you have to look bigger, right? We have to go from, we're so into it. This is like, obviously you should join the bandwagon. Why aren't you on the bandwagon? Why aren't you on the Oregon Trail, forging through, finding all the pit hole? You know what I mean? Like, just like thinking about it from the Oregon Trail perspective, like, why aren't you on the bandwagon? Like, I don't see you here. Why not? Right. And then all of us painters and things were just like in the Renaissance era, like living our best lives, saying, don't pull us out of the dark ages. Don't do it. But I think you should listen to the concerns, and really try and play devil's advocate. Something that I do all the time is I put myself in other people's shoes. And if that means that you have to go to ChatGPT and ask it to give you a good statement as to why the valid questions and concerns that the artist community have, do it and like just see what happens and read about it in a different way. But I also think like even before AI came on the scene, there are law firms. Okay, I get started smart. There are law firms that are actually created for creatives, right? Because there are so many things that can be pitfalls, right? You do a contract with someone and it was your best friend, and then, something went south and you didn't have a contract, and now y'all are at each other's throats of the idea versus the physicality of it. So,
Drama in the world, man, it gets ugly sometimes.
it does. It gets really ugly. Thankfully there are lawyers and there are other people who will help creatives, because I feel like creatives are their own little niche of just like cute. I'm just like, oh, I just want to love you, but like also please be smart. Not that we aren't smart. I think we're smart in so many different ways. It's just that we express our smartness in different ways. Very much like the neurodiverse community.
Yes.
But yes, I think just put yourself in other people's shoes and really think about it from other people's perspectives, and maybe rely on ChatGPT to explain it to you in a logical way, as to why it is the way it is.
Yeah.
For that community.
Because a lot of the cons that I am hearing from the artist community, and I want to know if these are the same ones you're hearing, are very concerned about the environment, which like, yeah, I think the one pro is DeepSeek has proved that you don't need to use nearly as much computing power in order to build these systems, and that's a really big deal.
That's good.
So I think I think we are going to see over time the energy usage is going to go down. We're just in a temporary period here. So that's my argument for that, or from my not particularly energy experienced self. I don't quite know if that's actually a good argument or not, but that seems to be I think that's the perspective of a few other people who are in the space. The other thing I'm hearing is a lot of artists are really concerned about copyright, especially visual artists, where signature like designs or looks that artists have spent years or decades putting together are so easily replicated. And there is a massive argument that these companies have indeed stolen artwork from the internet to build their models. Granted, what are we going to do about it? I don't know that there is anything we can really do about it, other than like let the legal process play out and see if there are going to be major payouts or things like that. But I do also think that artists take that too seriously without giving these tools a shot, right?
Yeah.
And I think the other concern is very much about jobs. And I think especially someone who's spent time in Hollywood, The Hollywood system in general has been slowly collapsing from the inside out for the last 2 decades, effectively. And more and more jobs have been cut. More and more corners have been developed by these different producers to try to get the costs of these big mega films to go down. And they're only interested in doing big mega like superhero films over and over and over and over again, and not trying new things. And so I think what techies are not recognizing in the artist space is that life has been very hard for artists just in general, especially in spaces like Hollywood. And that from the artist perspective, techies are now giving more tools to producers and people who are in financial power to distribute the arts, to cut things. And that is why the emotion is so sharp. That said, I think a lot of artists miss the fact that now they have the ability to build their own studios. With these tools, you now have the ability to go and build a successful content creator career on YouTube. You now have the ability to like go and make an animated film for $20,000 instead of 200 million.
Right.
So I think once that hits, we are suddenly going to see an explosion of phenomenal, beautiful films that artists have been trying to make for decades actually happen, and that the Hollywood gatekeepers aren't going to be able to hold them back anymore. And I think that's fantastic. And I think the faster we can come to that conclusion, the better off everyone is going to be, because then we're going to get such marvelous movies.
Right? The amount of capital it takes, right, to do something is sometimes a dream killer very quickly. Yeah. I think a lot of people don't even start things because they realize how much capital it takes, and then they just say, I guess it's not for me.
Yeah.
So I think that is a beautiful thing, is if you do decide to give it a try, just think of what the beautiful little things that could come out of it, just by doing it. But I will say, like, people have had their visual artwork stolen for years.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not going to say centuries, but century. Like, it's been happening.
Yeah.
It's been happening, right? There are people who forge paintings, and they want to pass it off as, like this is a Vermeer. Well, it's not a Vermeer, but
Picasso's everywhere. Or
right.
Picasso, there was some artist who like signed his work on a bunch of blank pieces of paper for money. And like, I don't quite remember what that story was, but it always made me laugh.
Well, and part of it too comes down to, and I'm gonna, my professor is going to like be screaming at me, but it was the man who wrote his name on a toilet and entered it in, and he said, "This is my art," right? And I think that's what a lot of artists just, and the world at large, like, people will see a Jackson Pollock and be like, well, my 5-year-old can do that.
Yeah.
And you're fine, but they didn't. But they're not in a gallery. They didn't put their name on it with a capital A as an artist, right? Capital A versus the small a. So
yeah.
No, I do think, like, educate yourself on the laws, right? Educate yourself with what's happening and what is we're seeing play out. I think even when you listen to the music scene, you'll hear like Pharrell Williams, right? He was in some hot water for a little bit because of his music. But again, everything is, there's like this funny thing that we have kind of in the arts community of like, steal what you can, but then like make it your own. Mm-hmm. And like stealing is flattery sort of a thing. And it's like, there's only so many ideas out there in the world, right? Like, we can only listen to the same Thor storyline for so long, and then like it's the same thing over and over again, or the same superhero, it's the same plot line, it's just like it's a different name and a different universe. And
there were only movies about vampires, and then they were only about superheroes,
and then it was werewolves. I mean, like,
werewolves, where are the werewolves?
Where are the werewolves? We've got zombies, we've got The Walking Dead, but when it comes down to it, nothing's really new. It's just, how are you portraying it into a new concept, right? So.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, Mary, thank you so much for coming on the show. This was an absolute delight. Everybody else, if you haven't already, please make sure to, it's With Love Books, yeah? With Love
Bookshop.
Make sure to check out withlovebookshop.com and check out Mary's delightful bookstore. And if not, check out the company that she works with. It's called Local. They make magazines. Yes? Did I get that right?
Yeah. They go into high-end earning income communities in the Twin Cities.
I love it. Nailed it. All right. Well, thank you so much, Mary, for this absolutely delightful conversation. Thank you, everybody else, for watching. Don't forget to check out the bookstore and to subscribe to the show if you liked it. And we'll see you next time. Thanks so much, everybody. Bye.